everybody, welcome to the Improv Summit. As you see this lovely logo behind me that I spent hours doing in Photoshop, can't you tell? Anyway, I'm your host as always, Spencer, and with me today, I have a special guest. This is exciting because it's going to be our first musical improv focused version, words. I do it a lot of the Improv Summit. So today I want to introduce to you Jake. Jake, how's it going today?
It is so good to be here. Thank you for having me, Spencer. I don't think I've seen you since the world ended. I think the last time I saw you was the day that the world ended.
Yeah, it was. By the time this is released, a year.
It's true.
Which is at least a year, I would say, maybe more.
Yeah.
But wow, that just hit me. I gotta think about that for a second.
I know.
Wow.
11 months, man. It's been,
wow.
I don't know about you, but it really didn't, I mean, I was able to keep myself busy, and the challenge of trying to find new ways to do some of the things that I love to do kept me going. But something about January, maybe it was also a coup attempt at the Capitol and some other things, but it just really all started to get to me last month. Really started to get to me.
I think it got to me first when I couldn't go home for the holidays to see my family. But second, when I turned 30 in quarantine, that's when I think it really kind of hit, where I was like, well, I'm turning over a new leaf. I'm turning 30, and yet here I am not able to see people.
I'm turning 31 this month. I will feel that for sure.
Well, there you go. Happy early birthday. And for those that are watching, happy belated birthday.
We're going to celebrate all of the birthdays we missed in just 1 month. When this is all over.
I'm going to celebrate all of 2020 pre-pandemic in just 1 month. Hopefully this year.
I've made this joke before, but I hope the CDC is planning also for the inevitable STD outbreak that's going to happen as soon as this is over. Yeah,
likely a lot of they say there's baby boomers, that were born in the 50s and 60s, but I think this is the time of babies booming.
Oh yes.
Am I right? Okay, everyone watching, I got to get a pun in there somewhere because it's Pun City.
That's what you do.
Let's dive into this thing, shall we? Enough about my lovely, incredible puns. Let's talk about you, Jake. Let's talk about your music background, and that can incorporate anything music related, whether it's music improv or just music in general, because I know you do music, which is why we're doing a musical improv special episode of the Improv Summit. And I'll probably do this and act like I'm going to put some cool music improv edition in here, but I'm not. I'm just doing this to make it seem like it's going to be right here.
Okay.
Anyway, and I'm not going to edit it in. I might. Who knows? Anyway, what is your music background?
Man. I supposedly was musical before I can even remember. My parents remember me before I could walk, crawling up to the stereo speakers in our house when they still had a stereo system, and pulling myself up and just listening to whatever they were playing. And they had a pretty good record collection, so I got started with my Beatles and my Elton John and The Who pretty early on.
The records, that's where I'm whew, we're showing our ages here with
real vinyl records. Yeah. Well, actually, what's funny though is that this next generation is going to know what vinyl is, but they're not going to know what a CD is.
They're not going to know what cassettes are.
That's true too.
That winding it with the pencil to get it when it got out of whack, and the VHS tapes that did that too. Which VHS is making a comeback too, so we'll see.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, with collectors, I guess, not in
Gotcha.
Cassettes are kind of nah.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Yes. Yeah. So my parents started me on piano lessons when I was 5. I always had a knack for it, but and around that time too, maybe a couple years later, I figured out that I could, if I heard something in a movie, I could pick it out on the piano. So I have a friend from kindergarten who swears that I picked out the theme to the movie Homeward Bound on her piano when we were in kindergarten together.
Nice.
Yeah, yeah. But I was never one for practicing, and so my parents stopped paying for lessons. But that knack for picking out things kind of stayed with me.
I can relate to that. I did
Yeah.
lessons in 4th and 5th grade, and my mom knew I wasn't practicing, and so did my music teacher. So she's like, "Nope," and I just never did it. And I wish I had, because that would have been a skill I would have loved to have had. Now it's a lot harder learning it at this age.
I'm slowly trying to teach myself some guitar, and it's not going very quickly.
I can help you with that. I had to take guitar in college, so
oh, there you go.
I'm getting more adept at it. Not electric, acoustic, but I picked up the ukulele. Anyway, enough about me.
Well, anyways, yeah. So in middle school, I realized I could still find songs mostly by that point I was into Green Day and Weezer and Foo Fighters. And piano is not really the instrument for those bands, but I could find those songs on the piano when I heard them. And then that quickly turned into songwriting. And I went to college, thought that I could be both a political science major and a music major, but then found out that I didn't really have the bandwidth for both, and that my the Penn music department had no interest in anything other than classical music. And so I ended up transferring to Berklee College of Music to try and do things full time, and I've been working full time ever since. And if you name it, I've probably done it at some point. I've booked concert series, I've managed venues, I worked as a dueling piano player, I ran a wedding band, I busked for a living for a long time. And the two main threads that have continued to come out of that is that I founded an indie rock band called Drunken Logic that I still run to this day. And then I also, while in Boston, got hired as the music director at a little comedy club called Improv Boston. And then when I moved out to Los Angeles, I kept Drunken Logic going, and I ended up getting a job at the Second City Hollywood, which is how I know you.
Yes, long time coming. No,
yeah.
I was going to say two things based on what you said. One is you said you busked professionally for a little while, and all I wanted to say as soon as you said it was busk it. I had to get it in there. And two, you said Foo Fighters, and it made me think of one of my favorites as a kid was the music video for
Learn to Fly.
How to Save. Yeah. And that, I will say that song is still as the kids call it, a bop. It still bops because I use it when I jump rope, and it's got a good like rhythmic beat to jumping to that.
Yeah, I still got that.
I love it. It's
that music video won the Grammy that year. And if you haven't seen it, it's literally just the movie Airplane in 3.5 minutes. That's the entire music video, except the band all play like 4 or 5 different people over the course of the video. And Tenacious D makes a cameo in it as well. But it's one of my all-time favorite music videos. And the Foo Fighters are kind of known for their very hilarious music videos, even to this day.
And I remember that one specifically. And the only other Foo Fighter song I really remember is the one that came out way later. The "I'll give another confession."
Oh yeah,
it's the best.
That's them at their most emo for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, but I remember that music video was just like him singing at a mic the whole time. Pretty much as a dress. They were like,
that was a much more serious music video.
They're like, we're good. Let's just stand at a mic and sing.
There's another music video off that same album in which the band is playing, but they're in a room that rotates around 360 degrees, and they all have long hair, so just slowly their hair is moving.
That's funny. I was gonna say 360 degrees, not 98 degrees.
No.
Just kidding.
Which easily the 4th best boy band from that era.
So yeah, Backstreet Boys, NSYNC. I mean, NSYNC was for sure number 1. Then Backstreet Boys, and then what? O-Town? No, not.
I was going to say O-Town. We could go. I don't know where Element fits into that.
Was it 5 or Take 5 or something?
I don't remember that. I mean,
when the lights go out, they had like one song.
Does Boys to Men count, or are they in their own little?
I don't know if they're like a man band. They're not like a boy
and
band.
much more R&B than just the straight.
And much better than the boy bands.
I'll tell you that. Yes,
I mean, the boy bands are great, but Boys to Men is they're Boys to Men.
What I have always found funny about the boy bands, and I can say this both as kind of a little bit of an amateur student of pop music, but also as a dueling piano player who has to gauge what songs the crowd's going to want to hear every night.
Like Britney or Christina.
And what songs go over better, right? Mm-hmm. So NSYNC, by every measure, had more fans, had more financial success, had more hits. None of their songs compares to the way that I Want It That Way Gets a Room Going. None of them. Mm-hmm. They definitely had more songs, but I don't know if they had a better one than I Want It That Way.
The other Backstreet Boys bop, the Bop Street Boys, is Everybody, Backstreet's Back, all right.
Don't leave out Larger Than Life as well.
Oh, that was my favorite. That music video was wild.
I don't remember that, but
that's when they're like in like the robot things. It's like Iron Man before Iron Man, like was, you know, like they were in like they were like big robots.
I distinctly remember that what the 1990s thought the future would look like and how that turned up in videos. Like TLC had one that was very similar to that too.
Oh yeah, it was
hilarious stuff.
TLC though, I love TLC. I'm not gonna lie, they got some great jams. They got Waterfalls, Creep, No Scrubs, and then you got Unpretty, and then you go into like they got The Girls Are Talking. They got great.
You know the back catalog much better than I do.
I do, and there's I've been damaged. Oh, so good. And then Left Eye, they all did like their own like individual things. Left Eye had Block Party, which is still a banger. I love that song. And R.I.P. Only song, R.I.P. And then T-Boz had the song from Rugrats in Paris, My Getaway. I don't know why I know so much about TLC, but I love Fan Mail is one of my favorite albums like that.
Oh wow.
And also Crazy Sexy Cool, because I have both of those on the CD. I actually have the other one, the one with Damaged and Girl Talk on it. Wasn't as good, but still great. Anyway.
Yes.
I could talk about TLC all day, I guess, now at this point.
90s music, for sure.
Yeah, 90s music. All the one-hit wonders, too. And I found out today, on a side note, Blessed Union of Souls, they did She Likes Me for Me.
Yeah.
Because I look like Leonardo. I was like, they're so a one-hit wonder. They're not. They had like 5 or 6 songs in the top 40. But that was their most recent hit, and that was in 1999.
Gotcha.
And it was their most popular hit, but I looked and I was like, they actually have other songs in the top 40. I had never heard another song that they had done, but I knew I
didn't even remember the band name.
Yeah, it's Blessed Union. I think it's Blessed Union. It's maybe Broken. I think it's Blessed Union of Souls.
I think it's
they spelled blessed wrong.
I'm sure.
It's ID instead of ED. But then you got like Eagle Eye Cherry. I love Save Tonight. But he actually only has like literally one song.
Well,
it's a good song though.
I'll just say, so the first album I ever owned, first CD I ever owned, was the Backstreet Boys Self-Titled. And the first album that I ever bought with my own money was Vertical Horizon, Everything You Want.
I love Vertical Horizon.
I never heard anything they did after that song, and they were technically a 2-hit wonder. Because You're a God was a banger as well.
Oh God, and I love that song more. I had Backstreet Boys Self-Titled on cassette tape.
Wow.
I think the first CD I ever owned was Now That's What I Call Music Volume 2, maybe, because I have Now 1 on cassette tape. I mean, I don't know if I still have them. I think I got rid of my cassette tapes. Maybe not. I don't know. I think I just kept them because no one's going to buy those. I was like, no one wants these. But yeah, that's music, old music. Not even that old, because we're only in our 30s. We're not even like, talking about 8 tracks and all that stuff. Don't even get me started. Anyway, let's keep talking about music, but in terms of some improv, in terms of some, whatever. So you do like musical improv, as far as like you play for a lot of musical improv. Do you perform in a lot of musical improv, or do you do more of like just the keys?
I have been almost exclusively on the keys. And while I've dabbled in some improv, and I think I can hang, I don't particularly think of myself as a great improviser once while on stage. But no, actually, I've done very little sing-prov, as some people call it. Yeah, not much experience there.
Oh, it's all good. But with musical improv, we were talking offline a little bit before, and you had brought up something that I thought was interesting. Do you want to elaborate on it? Because I forgot what it was, and I told you I was going to forget. But I think you know what I'm talking about.
Yes. Well, it's that, at least for me, some of the things that you learn to do as a musical director for improv can be a little detrimental to your ability as an improviser on stage. And I think part of it is really the direction aspect of it, that as a music director, you're considered in a lot of ways a player with the rest of the people on stage, but they give you the title of director for a reason. It's because you are shaping the show, and you are in a lot of ways pushing the players to go in certain directions, go into this song here, try and hint that this is something that they should be using to raise the tension and stuff. So you really get a bird's eye view of the show and the scene that's happening in that moment. And that's a really crappy way to look at the scene when you're on stage. And I find it very hard to get out of that. I tend to be, I tend not to make great, strong character choices and to just be the person who can start a scene, because I'm so used to waiting to see where the scene's going to go before I add into it. Where I do think it has helped is that I can be a really good walk-on. If you just need something to push the scene along, I can kind of just walk on and give you that one line or do that one thing that can move things forward. But being the focus of the scene, being the funny part of the scene really is hard for me as a performer. And I think it's because I have so much more experience behind the keys.
You know what that's called, my friend? It's called having an analytical brain.
That's it too.
Which I know everyone that's been watching these or listening to these knows full well every time I talk about my brain in these, because when I first did improv, I would think, I was like, okay, I have to go in, someone's doing a scene about this, so I need to go do a scene that I had to like think about everything. But then I realized one time someone was like, you just don't get on stage, you need to like get on stage. And I'm like, just pull me on stage. I'm thinking about everything else. Like, I'm not hesitant to go up, just pull me out on stage, like literally drag me, I'll do a scene. I'm just thinking about how I can bring characters back, what the next beats are going to be, how I can tie like a theme together, like when can I edit this? Like that's what my brain is so focused on. It's like, ooh, like, and I'm a walk-on kind of person. Like I can do a walk-on when it's needed. I think sometimes people want to just do walk-on so they can be on stage, and I'm like, you don't need to walk on there. They're doing fine.
No, you can definitely, the scenes can devolve with too many walk-ons for sure.
Unless that's the game of like these people can't get a word in edgewise.
Yes.
But I know exactly how you feel, because I will start doing that. I will analytically just like be picking apart things, or like I'll say like, okay, someone's asking, they're like saying something to me in a scene, and I'm like, I want to know what you want me to respond with. Yeah. And I'm like, I know that's they're not even thinking that. They're just offering an initiation, and it's like me to like choose what's happening. But it's like, do you want me to be excited by this? Do you want me to be sad by this? Let me see if I can read your mind. And I know it's not going to happen. I can't read minds. Like, sorry, I can't. So that's always exciting. And then I'm like, I don't want to initiate, because I'm like, what if I offer an initiation and it's like, they don't know what I'm trying to do. And then so I get so in my head, but I've also learned to let that go. I've discovered letting it go, as Elsa would say in Frozen, which I don't think that Elsa coined. Oh wow, we're in Arendelle all of a sudden.
I know.
I think that's the name of it. I don't know.
I haven't seen the movies.
Honestly, Frozen 2 is a little bit better, and I'm not a big fan of either. Sorry, Disney. That's all I got to say on those.
These song references aren't going to get this video taken down, by the way. Do I need to? Are they? Do you know?
No,
okay.
They're fine. Okay. Okay, I'm sorry. If Disney wants to like pull down my Improv Summit videos where they're getting free promotion, then Disney, you got other things to worry about. I love you, Disney. I love you, Disney. I love you to death. I love all of the movies except maybe Frozen and Frozen 2. But but also I think it's got to be like 15 seconds or something, or that's like a made up thing.
So I'll keep an eye on the clock then.
I don't know. I'm making stuff up, but I'm also talking over it. So I mean, really, whatever. They didn't invent the chords.
No. Did you? By the way, did you do the conservatory program at Second City?
I did conservatory. I did musical review too. I did the musical essentials and then musical improv review, because they don't do musical improv 1 through 3 or 4 or whatever.
I would love it if they did. But
I did get accepted to audition for a musical conservatory in Chicago, because I thought it was the Hollywood one and it was actually Chicago. And they're like, "Congrats, we want you to audition." And I was like, "Oh, you're Chicago. Just kidding."
That's really funny. But I was going to say that I actually find that while I struggled a little bit and was definitely treading water to kind of keep up through some of the later conservatory classes, once I finally got into grad review, I felt set free, because I think an analytical mind does very well in the re-improvisation system.
You bet your behind. When we got to re-improv, I was like, "Oh, give me the notes to make this scene better. Let's do it. I'm ready. Like, now I can do that thing I wanted to do." Yes.
And when you have a premise and you know what the premise is before you walk in, then you get all of these ideas and you can kind of feel them out in that it's like bowling with the bumpers on.
I almost wish there was like a re-improvisation program, because like I prefer improv to sketch, which is also weird because my analytical brain like wants things to be like a certain way. But I feel like with sketch, like once I write it, there's some element of creativity, but I feel like a lot of it is like very left brain, because it's like making sure the dialogue is right, the timing is right, all this stuff, focusing heavily on that. And then improv is the complete opposite, where it's like, let's just figure out what happens. And re-improvisation kind of meets that little middle, where it's like, there's some structure, but it's not really structured, but like, here's an idea. And so I love that re-improvisation. And I think it's a different skill than improv, and it's a different skill than sketch. And I'm glad that Second City teaches it, because it is very different. And when I first did it, I was like, this is so cool.
Yeah.
I love it.
I really felt at home there for sure.
And we even did it a little bit with like musical review. When we got in there, the first couple weeks, we were just improvising stuff. And then we had Michael Pollock, and he's great. And he, at one point, we would do stuff where it's like, okay, I like this idea of this rain song. Let's think of some relevant vocabulary. Let's redo this song based on rain. And he would play like the same melody. And it was like, okay, here we go. Let's do it. And that was fun to play with that too, because it's literally like, oh, the first time I messed up, I knew I could get a better lyric in there or whatever. But God, relevant vocabulary really helped a lot when I was doing musical improv, because I remember the suggestion I got was like snowman. And I was like, okay, snowman, snow, carrot, hat. And like I said, it's cold outside. I'll just have to grin and bear it. But right now I'm going to place on top of the snowman an orange carrot or whatever. And like, I was like, I did it. I actually did it. And it was so fun to see that. But it seems like that's something when you go through that program, or really when you're doing improv in general, or even sketch, musical elements play a big role in sketch, in improv, in re-improvisation. I know you've played for a bunch of different shows and play for different student shows and all of that, and even play for grad reviews and for premium shows and all of this.
Yeah.
How do you feel how do you feel musical improv, here, let me rephrase this question. It happens a lot on these. I know that like sometimes it's like, okay, the scene is being improvised, and I know the music director is always like tinkering with the piano. I love the word tinkering with the piano to like set a mood behind these scenes. How do you determine as a music director like how the feel of this music's going to be based on something that's completely improvised? How do you determine like how to improvise something, or like where this feeling is going? I think you understand what I'm saying. It's my Capricorn brain trying to explain it.
I do. So the first thing that I think about is generally, how much music have I played in this show already? Because sometimes like once every 3 or 4 scenes, the music director should just back out for a little bit. and let there be silence between words. I think it can easily be a music director's inclination to just overplay. And that's something I definitely had to fight back against when I first got started. And then the other thing is, really for me, the way I look at it is I have one of those, metaphorically at least, like one of those bandolier belts. And I've just got a bunch of different things I could pull out and put in the gun if I need it. And to that end, being a dueling piano player is in some ways, I think, the best job you can possibly have before going into this kind of work. For those, I don't want to be condescending or assume that people don't know what this is, but if you don't know what a dueling piano show is, it's an entirely request-based from the audience show where we have to be prepared to play basically any song that anybody brings up, usually based on how much they're tipping us to play. So if we're playing, Sorry by Justin Bieber, and somebody throws down $40 for us to play November Rain by Guns N' Roses, you stop playing Justin Bieber and then you start playing Guns N' Roses. And you've just got to be able to go. And you've got like an iPad in front of you usually to help you look up the chords, but you still have to know vaguely the tropes of that song, the tropes of that style, to be able to get away with faking a lot of the songs that
also November Rain on piano would be very interesting to hear, like completely stripped down.
Yeah, for sure. I have a feeling that song was written on piano, but it's so laced with strings and guitar that it almost gets lost in the rest of it.
I'd want to hear like Welcome to the Jungle on just piano and see what that's like.
I've had to do it. One of my favorite things to do actually at a dueling piano show on piano, as long as I have a drummer to let me do it, is Chop Suey by System of a Down. Just because there's nothing about that song that should be played on the piano.
That song is
it's so ridiculous.
I love it. I used to be terrified of that song. Mm-hmm. I mostly I was also terrified of Deftones, Changing in the House of Flies. That song freaked me out as a kid. Marilyn Manson freaked me out as a kid. Still freaks me out a little bit.
He should freak us all out, it turns out. But
yeah. Mm-hmm. That's but System of a Down, the Chop Suey, when I finally heard this song, I was like, why am I afraid of this song? This song makes no sense, but I love it, and it's so like
yep.
What is happening?
It's so disorienting is what's so cool about it.
I think that's what it was. It just felt like it was like a sensory overload for me. Yes. I think is what it was, and I was like, I don't know how to handle this song.
Yeah.
But then it made me think of also, what was it, POD? When they had like Rock the Party, and then all of a sudden they had We Are the Youth of a Nation.
Mm-hmm.
Bands
feel so alive. Those guys, yeah.
Yeah, when they are like, we're a rock band. Oh, we're gonna be a popular rock band now.
Yeah. Lots of bands made that choice in the 90s.
Oh yeah. And it shows.
Yes. But yeah, I mean, the idea is like, okay, I know what Motown sounds like. Mm-hmm. So if the mood in a particular scene, if the song is happy, or it would be funny to juxtapose something that's kind of the song that sounds like it's by the Temptations against something about like anxiety and loneliness, then have that ready to go. Mm-hmm. And just have a couple of things that your fingers can kind of find pretty instantaneously, and then you can fill out the idea as you go, which I think to a lot of people would make it sound like I'm cheating and that it's not improv, but at least that's my approach, in that you got to know what kind of sound you're going for instead of just trying to play random notes.
Well, I think it's also like, the improviser's toolkit. It's like, I'm not making up yes and every time. I mean, I know to yes and, or I know to listen. Like, I have these tools that I can use to play with, but I'm not sure how I'm going to use them until I use them. So I think it's the same kind of thing where it's like you have all these different styles, but you're not like, I'm ready to play a Motown song, let's do it. You're like, this song feels like it needs something. They're talking about a cat. Let me do some Smelly Cat or whatever. Like you take it's like you take your bag of tricks and you pull from it what you need. And that's still how improvisers work, as we're making stuff up as we go, but it's not like clean slate. I don't know anything about improv. I'm just going to get in and do a scene. It's like pulling the stuff that I've learned from improv to make my improv scenes work. And it's the same thing with like musical improvising. It's like, again, we talked about relevant vocabulary, knowing that as a concept. It's like, okay, if I'm thinking of like, we vamp at the beginning of songs, so I'm not just like going off saying words right off the bat. I have time to like get my brain together of how I'm going to do. Am I going to do a verse chorus song? Am I going to do I can't even think of another one right now, a tagline song? Am I going to do like, what am I going to do? I can't just, and it's like one of those things with that. I think you get my point. It's also just for the audience too. It's like, I'm not going to just be like, I'm going to start singing, and sometimes I'll start singing and figure it out as I go. Cause I might say a great line right off the bat and I'm like, that's my tag. It's a frontline tag. Or I might start doing words and I might start rhyming and I'm like, oh, nope, that's a verse. It's time for the chorus now. And so sometimes I figure it out as I go, but sometimes it's like, okay, in the show, we've had 3 verse chorus songs. Let me do a tagline song. And I might have to just make that decision. I don't know what I'm going to sing about, but I was like, let me change it up. Let me do a tagline song. So that kind of also is a thing there where it's like all these different scenes, you want to break it up by doing something different. So you pull from that toolkit.
For sure. For sure. And then the other thing that kind of came into my head as we were having this conversation is that, well, it's just this idea that music is always manipulative. And you can read all sorts of studies about why CVS will play certain types of music in its stores to get its patrons to behave a certain way, that there are specific times in the night when bars will turn up their music and change the music they are playing because they want people to dance and they want people to buy drinks. And like, I think that like after a certain point, if it gets harder to hear somebody or to hold the conversation, then the thing you do is go to the bar to fill your time and make yourself look less lonely to everybody else, So there is this long history of that. And one of the things it took me a second to realize when I first started doing this was that even if people aren't overtly reacting to everything you are playing as the music director, they are affected by it. And you have to be very careful on that end. And I specifically remember when I was at Improv Boston, I did a rehearsal with their touring company, which to me, these were all the people that I was taking classes with. So the fact that I was all of a sudden playing piano for them made me feel like I was completely out of my league, right? But I distinctly remember as the transition between 2 scenes, I played something vaguely Latin sounding. Right, something like that. And as soon as that's over, somebody comes back to the audience and asks for a get. And the suggestion they got from the audience was tropical birds. And I was like, holy crap. I don't know if we would have gotten that suggestion if I hadn't played the music that led up to that like 5 seconds before. And so which means that, people are always feeling and hearing what you are doing. And even if it's not pushing them very overtly into a song, there are certain things you are doing that are absolutely going to signal to people that that something is happening and it's going to affect the choices they make. So I am always the other caveat to the idea of not overplaying is if you're playing, have a reason. Always, it doesn't have to be a very good reason. It doesn't have to be, like a perfect reason or completely thought reason. It can be based on an instinct, and that instinct may totally end up being wrong. But have a reason that you are playing in this moment. That's definitely a philosophy I try and live by.
I love that. I think it's important to have a reason, really, in regular improv too. Even more in musical improv is there's got to be a reason for a song to start. If someone's playing for a musical improv show and there's nothing's happening, it's harder to like get a song set up, because when you go into a song, usually you're like, I know exactly why the accompanist started playing or why the music director started playing, because I'm supposed to be singing about my how much I hate avocado or whatever it is. I love avocado now, by the way, being a Californian from Florida. I didn't like him in Florida, love him in California, but you know, that's how it is.
We brainwashed you.
Yeah, exactly. But it is that idea of like, again, with that reason, like if I'm just like, hey, how's it going? Hey, what's up? Yeah, like there's no reason for a song to happen because there's nothing happening on stage. Cool. I want to take a, oh, no, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, jumping off that, one of the things I always do in just about any musical improv class that I hold, and a lot of the rehearsals that I do too, just as a warm-up exercise to that end, I have a bunch of people, we just run through a series of scenes with no music, but I make everybody else who's in the cast or in the audience write down or think, where could we have gone into song in this scene? Where did we get to the point where the tension was high enough or somebody said something funny enough that could have been a title? Because I think a lot of people don't think in those terms in terms of what, do we have the ingredients necessary to make a song, right? In you know, musical improv at its core is really just satirizing the concept of musical theater. Because the idea of us breaking into song in the middle of a conversation or while going about our lives is such a ridiculous idea that there's a lot of funny, you know, juxtaposition to be found there. But the thing that's common between the two is that it has to be earned. There has to be a reason why. There has to be enough emotional content and gravity in what's happening on stage for it to be worth it. So if you just say offhandedly, I hate avocados, that's not a song. If you've given us a 4-long monologue about why you hate avocados, then we've gotten to the point that we might have something to, if you were, you know, fed nothing but just a tin of guacamole from the moment you were a child all the way up, I want to hear about that. That's worth a song, you know? But yeah, you can't just start singing because you think it's funny. There's got to be something weighty there too.
And it's also, you can kind of see, it's almost like as an improviser, you're kind of you can kind of tell the difference between like here comes a thing that's going to be a song versus like, wait, the music's starting, I did something that I didn't know I was doing. Right. I guess I'm singing about hating avocado that I ate out of a can for all. Okay, here we go, let's do it. And I think that that's what makes it more fun, is when you're not expecting it, because you're not trying to like make it funny or make it into a song. You're just like, okay, when it happens, it happens. I trust the person playing the music that it's going to happen when it happens. I know that they know they're in a show playing for music, so I know they're going to play a song. So it's my job to gift them with the ability to get a song going so I can sing a song, or whoever it is. Not necessarily.
The other thing I always tell people is, if you're unsure why I started playing, just repeat the last thing you said. Because I can vamp for however long we need to get into this song, but if you're unsure why, just think back to what you just said and you'll probably figure out why I thought that was a good moment to start playing. Yeah.
That's great. I love it. It's also great if I remember everything I said right after I said it.
That's the other key for sure.
I've learned it's like, people are like, yeah, can you repeat what you said? And I'm like, I don't know. What did I say? Anyway, let's jump into some plugs and pitches. Do you have anything you want to pitch or plug into the ether?
Yeah. So like I mentioned earlier, I'm in a band called Drunken Logic. And by band, I mean solo project. It's been a band, and I like to have other people play with me, but it's really my stuff. And actually, what we were alluding to was that at the very beginning of this was that in March of last year, I held a read-through for a musical that was supposed to be based on the last Drunken Logic album. And Spencer was kind enough to come to the table read. But very quickly after that, we realized we couldn't do musicals. And I was sitting around going like, what the hell can I do? And it turned out that I had Turns out that I had 4 songs. I've got like, 20 or 30 backlogged at any given point. But I had these 4 songs in particular that had never made it onto previous Drunken Logic albums because I was planning on using a lot of electronic instruments, synth drums, actual synthesizers, that kind of thing. And I realized all of a sudden that what better time to work on that music than when you're recording remotely. So I and this great producer that I've been friends with for a long time, he goes by the name Iron Fist. He and I collaborated on a new Drunken Logic EP called It's Only Temporary. It's going to be out on March 12th. 4 songs. It's going to be everywhere you can find your streaming music, as well as in our online store. And I'll be doing a lot of online performances and things to promote it. But it's 4 songs that sound a lot different than the kind of folk rock stuff that I've lived in, but is very much still a Drunken Logic record. And I'm really proud of it and can't wait to show it to the world.
That's awesome. Congrats on doing stuff during this time, because sometimes we just don't want to be creative when we're around our house doing nothing all day.
Yeah, man, it's real easy to fall into that rut.
Now, Jake, I have one more question for you, which is the reason why I'm doing this improv summit. I kind of prepped you on it a little bit beforehand, but we'll talk about it. I'll ask you the question in a musical improv aspect.
Okay.
So I usually get this question, where should I take improv? And because I've done a lot of different improv schools and a lot of different improv in general, and people ask me that question, and it's hard for me to give an answer. But on the flip side, I've also done musical improv like at UCB, Second City, Rogue, with Tara Copeland, so many different places I've done musical improv. And so if someone said, oh, Jake, you're a musical director for musical improv, where do you think I should take musical improv? That's what would be like one piece of advice you'd give to someone to help them start on their musical improv journey?
My tips, I don't think are going to be so much about musical improv specifically. Sure. I think they're going to be about the entire family of improv.
And that's also something to think about too, regarding musical improv, is that you're carrying all these improv elements into musical improv with you.
Yes. For me, the experience of doing improv is what you do in the theater is just as important as getting to hang out with those same people afterwards. It is very much, to me, about the community that you are in and the friends and relationships you make. And in LA, that's much harder to navigate because you don't know whether or not you're just networking or actually making friends a lot of the time. But I'm biased in this regard because I got started at Improv Boston, which has now suspended operations, unfortunately. And that's largely because it was a nonprofit theater. And that's not to say it didn't have its flaws and its warts, but it did mean that the people who were there because they loved it and because they loved each other. And that meant that the bar right next door was a great place to hang out every night because you would find those people and you could keep making those jokes and you could keep having those conversations. And there's something about improv, not just as an art form, but as a philosophy, that if you find people who really believe in it, I think you're more likely to find more profound friendships and have more interesting conversations because people are willing to speak honestly and to say what they really feel. That is ultimately what this art form is about on some level. I am fortunate enough, the Second City, while it is a for-profit theater, did scratch a lot of those itches for me. I wouldn't say it scratched all of them. But there are some other, there was another theater in Los Angeles who shall remain nameless, that while I think there were a lot of great people there, it just felt like a zoo to me. It was too big, there were too many people, and I felt very overwhelmed and felt like it was very much more about people taking this because their agent suggested they had to in order to get booked on a commercial. And it was that kind of attitude rather than people who were really there to say something and to start working and meeting and getting to know other people. So to me, it's about the community, and you should find a place that is going to be your community.
I love that. That's great. Well, thanks for joining me, Jake. I lied. I said that was the last question I had for you, but I actually have one more question.
Uh-oh.
And that question is, would you like to do some improv?
Why not?
I want to propose something
Okay.
for this improv. I want to give you a suggestion and have you play something that you feel based on that suggestion. What do you say?
Let's do it. Let's go for it.
All right, let's do it. Let's see. So the suggestion is going to be, I'll start with an easy one and then I'll make them harder, but like, like a 10-second whatever. So the first suggestion is if someone was doing a scene and something came up about chocolate, what would you play based on chocolate?
Bliss. I'm trying to go for bliss.
Great. I could tell. I was gonna say it was like very like Valentine's-y kind of.
Yeah.
All right. How about this one?
Okay.
A little bit harder.
Here, I just for tech, you can hear my
I can
keys,
hear. Yeah,
so I'm gonna mute my mic temporarily.
Great. Your suggestion for this one is uniform. If uniform came up.
I'm reading Rise and Fall of the Third Reich, so that might be informing my choices.
Yeah, but also uniform. I was thinking, school uniforms, but military. I didn't even think about like an army uniform. A uniform. It's a very uniform suggestion, but also
you might say that.
Not at all. I would say the exact opposite of uniform. Anyway, not. So the next suggestion, we'll say it's the last suggestion.
Okay.
I'm going to give you two options and you pick one. Don't tell me which one it is. I'm going to see if I can guess what you were going for.
Love it.
So the first suggestion is pecs, as in pectorals. And the second suggestion is, I don't even know what that is. The second suggestion is tortoise. So either pectorals or tortoise. I want to say that was based on tortoise.
Yeah, it was definitely based on tortoise.
Great.
I don't know. I was thinking, I guess he's more, no, there's a tortoise in the Looney Tunes universe, right? Isn't there? Or is he more of a turtle? No, it's the tortoise and the hare, right?
A tortoise and the hare for sure.
Yeah, where Bugs Bunny always makes himself look like an idiot. There's like 3 different versions of that cartoon where he's racing against the tortoise.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a tortoise in Looney Tunes. I'm looking it up now to see. Tortoise Looney Tunes. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
There is. I remember this. It's the hare and tortoise race.
Right.
I think it's called Tortoise Wins by a Hair, or tortoise. Yeah, I think whatever. Cecil the Turtle. That's Cecil the Turtle. That's who it is.
Okay, so it's a little controversial as to what species he actually belongs to.
Yeah, well, it says Cecil Turtle is a tortoise in the thing that I read. So, yeah. So that's I don't think anyone knows.
let me ask you this: what music do you think of when you think of pectoral muscles?
I think of literally like electronic, like
bad workout music?
Electronic. Yeah, like I think Icona Pop.
Okay.
Which is because like when I work out, it's very much like 90s one-hit wonders and like R&B jams. Like I don't do what I think of, but that's what I guess I would think of, or like something that's like a whoo, I don't know what that is. Something like that.
My one of the sketches that I proposed that made it into our grad review was based on an experience I had in Boston, where I walked into my YMCA. And they were playing the Lazy song by Bruno Mars.
That's funny.
Which is just not Today I don't feel like doing anything. Like that's the last thing you want to hear when you just
lay in my bed.
You don't want to hear that at 9 o'clock in the morning when you just walked 4 blocks in 25 degrees. Like that's the last thing you want to hear. So I just the sketch became let's have a personal training session, and the personal trainer just has the worst workout playlist ever. So the other song on it was "Hurt" by Johnny Cash. And
I feel like I saw this sketch.
Maybe?
I
Did
feel
you
like
come
I
see Laboratory Savants?
I don't remember at all.
It was me. It was Sarah Lubrin.
I pictured this sketch on the Second City stage. Whether or not I saw your grad review or like maybe a class show version of it, I don't know.
A preview or something.
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure I remember this sketch happening with those exact songs.
That would have been us.
So
that would have been us.
Anyway, well, thanks for joining me. Thanks everybody for coming to the Improv Summit. I'm Spencer. That's Jake. See you next time. Bye.